Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dialogue, the Diapoint Podcast. Today, on this November, which starts Diabetes Awareness Month, I have a very special guest. November is Diabetes Awareness Month because November 14th is the birth date of Sir Frederick Banting, who was the scientist that discovered insulin, which we're so thankful for, which saved so many lives. And November 14th is World Diabetes Day. Therefore, the whole month of November is Diabetes Awareness Month. That's when the rest of the world engages in the conversation about diabetes. Even though those of us living with it or our loved ones living with it are aware of it every day, it's nice to have this month to reflect, discuss it, and elevate the conversation. Today's episode, I couldn't think of a better guest right now to join me to inspire us all to live well, whether we have diabetes or not. She is an inspiration for everyone, but she is doing so many amazing things while living with type 1 diabetes. So please let me tell you a little bit about today's guest, Milly Larmer. She is an ardent outdoor enthusiast driven by the thrill of pushing her boundaries amidst the beauty of nature. In the last 18 months alone, she's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. She's hiked the 170-kilometer Mont Blanc Massif. She's climbed the Aiguille des Tuiles. Backtrack. She's climbed the Aiguille. Cutting it off again. This is a new word for me. She's climbed the Aiguille des Tuiles. She's also done the Aiguille Marbris, the Mount Rosa, and the Pyramid de Vincent in Europe. She's also scaled Cotopaxi and Chimborazo in Ecuador, and she's explored the diverse corners of the globe, such as Socotra on the island of Yemen, Pakistan, and Tajikistan. Sorry, off Yemen, Pakistan, and also Tajikistan. She's also led remarkable treks, such as, I'm going to go back and read that part again, and explored diverse corners of the globe, such as Socotra, the island off Yemen, and Pakistan and Tajikistan. She's also led remarkable treks, such as the Women's Heritage Walk, a challenging 125-kilometer journey across the UAE desert. She's climbed to Everest Base Camp in Nepal, the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu in Peru, the Marca Valley Track in Ladakh, the Indian Himalayas, and she's about to embark on another adventure to cycle across Namibia. Milly embodies a passion for adventure and a zeal to make a meaningful impact. Now, as Golf for Good's partnership sponsors and fundraising manager, she eagerly directs her competitive spirit towards supporting communities worldwide. With a wealth of experience in exploring, climbing, trekking, and leadership, Milly is poised to leverage her fervor for outdoor pursuits to forge impactful partnerships and drive fundraising efforts. She brings positive change to the lives of so many across the globe, not just only through her work at Golf for Good, but through her personal story and where she is taking her diabetes. So with such a bio and background of what she's just done in the recent months, I can't wait for you to meet her. So let's get on with the show. So Milly, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. We're very excited that you're here. And I have so many questions for you. And first, it was for those listening, the way that I met Milly was completely accidental. Actually, one of her colleagues came by. We were at an event. Both of our organizations were at an event, and someone came by and said, "Oh, do you know Milly?" I said, "No, I don't." And they said, "Well, you need to meet her because she's a person living with diabetes." And I said, "Oh, okay. Yes, I must." And especially because of, how you manage it, where you're taking your diabetes, and it's certainly not stopping you from doing anything, which we always say it shouldn't stop anyone from doing anything. But before we get into the adventures, can you start from the beginning and give us a little background? Tell us about yourself and how you were diagnosed.
Yeah, sure. So I live in Dubai, and I'm 53 now. So I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, nearly 14 years ago. So it was a late diagnosis, and I actually diagnosed myself, bizarrely.
Oh,
Yeah, I was on holiday in France, and I just had this uncontrollable thirst. Like, I would be drinking 2 liters of water in one go and still being like parched. I've never experienced anything like that before in my life. And I was like, this is not normal. And then my eyesight started to go, and I was just like, okay. And I remember being at college with somebody, and she got diagnosed with type 1. And I remember her saying that, she'd never been so thirsty in her life. She's never experienced something like that before. And I was like, okay, that is kind of causing alarm bells. So I went back to the UK, and went to see my doctor. And I just said, look, I actually think I might have type 1 diabetes. She was like, oh, why do you think that, kind of, and I was just like, well, I went on a website, and I'm kind of ticking every single thing on the list. And she said, okay, let's do a blood test. So did the blood test. And then I hadn't even got back home, and I've got a call saying, you need to go straight to a hospital. You've got diabetes, and your levels are so high. She said, I'm surprised you're not in a coma. So went straight to the hospital, was in a bit of a trance, but kind of not, because I kind of had got that in a kind of feeling that, it was going to be confirmed. So so literally there and then they put me on insulin, and I spent 24 hours in the hospital, and my whole life changed, literally. And
wow.
yeah, it's really weird, because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease in 2001, which is kind of like an autoimmune disease. And they think that I got my diabetes because of a virus. They think it triggered the diabetes. And bizarrely enough, my brother, so I was diagnosed in September, and bizarrely enough, my brother, who is a lot younger than me, I diagnosed him as well, because he had exactly the same symptoms as me 2 months later.
Oh.
And so I was just like, oh my God, I think you've got diabetes. And so went through the whole process with him. And yeah, he got diagnosed as well. So they think that I probably had a virus that I then passed on to him. But no one else in my family.
Unbelievable. That is fascinating.
Yeah.
So your story, yes, does point out that, because people used to associate type 1 diabetes as only children would be diagnosed with it. Absolutely. And then you live with it the rest of your life. But I've met adults of all ages that I met one man, he was diagnosed like in his 60s or 70s, like quite old. Wow. And shortly after his son was diagnosed, it was very interesting. And his son was diagnosed as an adult. Oh. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important for people to know that adults can be diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It's often mistaken for type 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, well done that you were aware of the signs and symptoms. It's not uncommon for people to live with one or more autoimmune conditions like Hashimoto's, or sometimes celiac, or different things like this people see with type 1. But what an incredible story. An amazing sister you are, that you got it.
And it was really weird. He was so much younger than me. I was just kind of nearly turning 40, but he was like kind of very early 20s. And for me, I was able to accept it. Do you know what I mean? Like I had the kind of acceptance of, right, I've been given this kind of life-threatening disease, so I can either let it run my life, or I can run it. Do you know what I mean? I can take control of it. But I think when you're very early 20s, when your whole life is ahead of you, you want to go out and have fun with your mates, stuff like that, to kind of have that happen to you was very, very difficult for him, very difficult for him. And I got very different levels of care in comparison to what he got. That makes a huge difference as well. So my diabetes changed my life. I think it gave me a real focus in life. And I think my brother has struggled with it for so many different reasons, you know, for the fact that he was so young when he got it. You know, all his mates were going out having a great time and he had to be really careful. You know, it was like a real mind kind of fest for him. I was a lot mature than him, so I could get my head around it. He couldn't. And I just think, you know, the level of care as well that I have received from living in the Middle East has been completely different to what he receives in the UK. So yes, massive.
Yeah, it's
difference.
so tricky. And that's very interesting because I think my son was diagnosed at 18 months old, so he doesn't know life without diabetes. And while it's tricky and it's challenging, in some ways that's a blessing in disguise that you don't remember what it was like before and how easy it was without it.
His whole mindset is in that kind of function of I am a diabetic.
Yeah. And it shouldn't keep anyone from doing anything. You can still go out and enjoy a great time with your friends and do all the things, but you do have to be aware of it. You do have to manage it. It is my son's, the first doctor that we saw said, this is such a nagging condition. You're going to hate it. And I thought, what a weird thing. That's not very medical, but it was absolutely true.
Yeah, it is absolutely true. It's not medical and it's not very positive. But also I think as well, you know, when you've never had diabetes in your life and then suddenly it's like your whole life, the people who are around you are so uneducated about this condition that they don't understand. And so therefore they're like, why are you doing that? You shouldn't be doing that. You're a diabetic. It's a life-threatening disease. Well, I can do it. Of course, nothing's going to stop me doing it. I just have to take precautions and I just have to be more aware. But do you know what I mean? I remember, you know, we went out for dinner and with some people and I was sort of like injecting myself at the dinner table and they found it really offensive. They were just like, shouldn't you go to the bathroom to do that? You know, kind of like, because they just couldn't get their head around, they didn't want to see me putting a needle into my body. And you know, it just kind of, and you have to be really, really aware. And we took my son and one of his friends to watch a movie, and we went for lunch beforehand. And, you know, I'm just sitting there where everybody's finished their eating and, you know, starting their eating, and I'm injecting and what have you. And suddenly his friend hit the floor. He completely passed out. My son's friend completely passed out because he's got a real phobia about needles. Like he literally just hit the floor and everything. And I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea. And, you know, the mother was really sweet. She was really calm and really nice, but she was just like, I wish you told me that you had diabetes. And I was just like, oh my God, you know, if I had to tell everybody that I had diabetes.
Yeah, it's not something you would think of. And that's really unfortunate. Definitely, you shouldn't be going to the bathroom to inject because that's just not the cleanest place to inject in the first place. And I mean, no one, a lot of people with diabetes, I read this story all the time. I hear it all the time. They say, go to the bathroom and inject, or don't check your blood sugar at the table. Yeah. And I'm just like, no, like it's just part of like a normal thing and it needs to be done. And there's no shame in it. There's no reason to go to the bathroom or a dirty closet to do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of our lives, and you shouldn't be made to feel guilty about something that you have to do to keep you alive. You know, yeah, it's really, really weird. Or people sort of like saying, "Oh, is that enough? Are you giving yourself enough insulin?" I don't think you're giving enough. Or why aren't you giving yourself insulin when you're eating a salad? You know, well, because the salad's got no carbs in, so I don't need to. You know,
a lot of people, and it always seems to be like the same people if we're, you know, see them from time to time, and they're like, oh, can your son eat that? And I look over and he's eating like normal food.
Exactly.
Like, once it was like watermelon or, you know, and I'm like, yeah, pretty much he eats everything.
Yeah. And why shouldn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Especially if it's like a healthy thing. Yeah. You just have to, you know, for those listening, if you don't have diabetes and you're wondering about the food, you just have to know how to match the amount of insulin that you have to the amount of carbohydrates that you're taking. It's that simple.
Exactly. And just have confidence and know that the person who is the diabetic knows what they're doing.
I know. Unsolicited advice. I think people
Yeah.
with diabetes get a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so tricky.
Fascinating.
So
Yeah.
when did you start? So I want to shift now. When did you start? Because you do a lot of, what people would describe as very adventurous excursions that a lot of people wouldn't do, or they would only dream of doing. And if they had a chronic condition, they would really wonder about how to go about doing that. So when did you start getting into climbing and hiking and all the different adventurous things that you do?
So I've always had a love of kind of adventure, or like always. I think that stems from my dad taking us to the Alps in Europe and making us climb mountains in flip-flops back in the day, you know, kind of.
Wow.
There's nothing wrong here. And yeah, I've always had that love. And I think when I got diagnosed, life keeps you busy when you have kids and stuff like that. And then when I got diagnosed with diabetes, I realized that exercise, was going to be a fundamental part of my life. And I did exercise before, but just it was kind of as and when I could kind of, patch it into my daily routine with the kids and stuff. And so I had to make a conscious effort to become super healthy, but also super fit, because that has plays a massive difference in your blood sugar levels, exercise. And so I kind of realized that I wanted to really challenge myself and go off and do some kind of, because as a diabetic, you're always constantly being told you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. Oh my God, don't do it. Don't run a marathon, kind of don't, do a stair climb, don't walk the 4 peaks, 3 peaks, whatever. And so for me, that was almost like a testament to tell you, well, actually, I am going to do it and I can do it. I'm going to prove you wrong, kind of thing. So I think I got into it, into all these wonderful ventures, when I kind of realized that I was a diabetic, my life needed to change, and that I could prove people wrong, basically. I wanted to also test my own mindset and my own diabetic capabilities. I wanted to kind of know for me that I was strong, that I had got it under control, and that I could do anything I wanted to do. And maybe be an inspiration to other diabetics, that if I ever came across, or generally speaking, people as well, anyone. And so so I've done lots of so many, I can't even list them, but I think one of the main ones for me was when I was a guide for the Women's Heritage Trek, so I did it 3 times, actually, was a guide 3 times. So, and that is an amazing trek, 125 kilometers across the desert from Al Ain to Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. And so you have to walk across these deserts, so these massive sand dunes, and it's incredible. You follow the footsteps of the Bedouin women, you stay in Bedouin tent, it takes 5 days. And it's 25 Emiratis ladies and 25 expat ladies. And all of them had signed up for their own personal journeys. Some people were going through divorces, some people were, whatever. And so I think that for them to hear my personal journey about why I was doing it, gave them strength and courage to be able to kind of do it themselves. They were like, oh my gosh, she's a diabetic. Well, if she's a diabetic, I can do this, because maybe she's a bit weaker than me because she's a diabetic, so I can do you know what I mean, kind of, it is that whole perception of diabetes and people with diabetes. So but the flip side was I was kind of encouraging them and giving them kind of strength to, look, if I can do it, you can do it, kind of thing. So, and then I think it's just escalated from there on, and I've just found this love of kind of being with like-minded people, proving to myself that I can climb a 6,500 meter mountain, in sub-zero temperatures, and try to control my diabetes, because when you're doing something like that is incredibly difficult, because obviously you're at altitude, your body is undergoing so much physical stress, your mind is playing tricks on you, so stress comes into it, and stress can elevate blood sugar levels. Eating, when you climb a mountain, you're supposed to eat a lot of sugar to be able to give you the energy to kind of get you to the top of to the summit. But obviously that's the worst thing a diabetic can do, because then you have to give yourself so much insulin, which then crashes. So just, it's like a massive mental battle, as well as a kind of strength battle as well. And I kind of get off on that. I quite like the challenge of that. I find it quite empowering, and I kind of, for me personally, it's kind of another tick that I am a strong human being, I am an inspiration, and I am somebody who can do exactly what I want to do and want to achieve, despite having type 1 diabetes. So yeah.
Amazing. You definitely are an inspiration, and
thanks. Well, I keep, I did start off with a bit of imposter syndrome about that, but somebody told me once, you shouldn't, because people in the world need people to look up to and to kind of be inspired by. And, we've all got our kind of heroes in the world, and I'm nowhere near one of those, but, if you can give that sense of, oh my God, yes, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. Then absolutely, you shouldn't feel guilty about kind of giving people inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. And not just like for someone to do it, for people to do it with diabetes, but I often, for me, and I tell other moms, I'm like, follow these people, because this is the future, and this is what your child can grow up and do these amazing things. There's no reason they can't. So it does give, as parents or caretakers, it gives people a lot of hope, or other family members, and even for people with type 2 diabetes, because they're not even sure if what they can or can't do with type 2, because there's so much stigma around type 2 as well. I think it really means so much, and it just motivates people. And
exactly, and I think
it's incredible to do this without diabetes. I mean, managing diabetes in the day-to-day is exhausting. How do you do it when you're climbing up a mountain?
And I went to Machu Picchu in July this year I took some people to trek the Inca Trail, and there was a guy on there who was a type 1 diabetic, and he just said to me, he said, I cannot tell you how safe I feel coming on this. He'd never done anything like this before in his life, so it was a huge challenge for him personally. And he just said, I cannot tell you how amazing it is to have you on this trip as a type 1 diabetic. He said, because I know that when my levels start going high, he said, I can come to you and I can just say, oh my God, what do I do? Because you've got the experience, you've got the knowledge of doing. And he just said, also gave his mother, he said, a great kind of comfort that he wasn't going to be on doing this amazing challenge for him personally, that he wasn't going to be sort of like, oh my God, having these awful hypos and hypers and just not knowing what to do. So that was really cool. And again, when I'm cycling through Namibia, I've got this lovely guy who was diagnosed initially with type 2. He's also got an autoimmune disease, and it's now gone to type 1. And again, he was just like, honestly, the peace of mind that I've got knowing that you're a type 1 and you're going to be on that challenge is, he said, it just means so much. And that's
so incredible.
Yeah,
I'm gonna send my son to do some, I mean, he's not so much into the extreme stuff. My husband has done a few Golf for Good. He's been to Kilimanjaro, and then also and I don't know if that was with Golf for Good, but definitely when he went to Everest Base Camp years ago, that was with Golf for Good, like almost not quite 20 years ago. Not 20 years, it couldn't have been, because I learned I was pregnant with my son, and then I didn't go.
Right.
So it would have been like 16 or 17 years ago.
Cool.
But I always said I thought Machu Picchu would be doable and amazing to do with my son, or do as a family.
Oh yeah, you should.
I want to make sure like you're on that. Like I think I know a lot, but I'd be like, Milly, what do I do? It would be amazing. to have that kind of support. And that's just incredible that other people, even though they live with it every day and they know what to do, but giving them that sense of comfort, just knowing that, you know, there's someone else there that gets it and has their back, I'm sure.
Yeah, peace of mind. And I think also as well, you know, people, when you have a severe hypo, people who are not aware of diabetes it's very scary for them. Do you know what I mean? Like it's super scary but when you have severe hypo, you almost have this kind of out of body experience. Like I can't explain it to anyone other than that. But for somebody to watch you who doesn't know that, and to be at altitude or, you know, in the middle of nowhere, it can be very scary for the people that you're with. But, you know, also, and then unfortunately, there is also that kind of embarrassment of coming out of that hypo and kind of behaving the way you did, or people seeing you like you feel a lot of remorse and embarrassment. And so that's, you know, and a lot of guilt that they had to witness that. And so it's, you know, managing that as well is really, really tough. Like you say, you know, diabetes is a mental game. You know, it really is. I spend my entire life kind of living through numbers. Do you know what I mean? Like mentally thinking about, you know, and it seems to be predominantly numbers. You know, when I'm carb counting, it's all numbers. When I'm taking my insulin, it's all numbers. How many minutes exercise am I doing? How many steps have I taken? It's literally kind of, you can never switch off from being a diabetic. Like you literally, if you do, like if you just decide one evening, I'm going to go throw caution to the wind, I'm going to have a night off diabetes and I'm just going to enjoy myself and not have to think about anything, well, then my God, you pay the price for the next 2-3 days with, you know.
It can take some time. I've observed in my son to bounce back, and kind of the way what you eat in the morning kind of sets the tone for the day with the insulin. Of course, you know, with his different insulin pumps and things, it makes it a little easier than it was in the past, but it doesn't take much to really have an off day or an off 2 days. And recovering from a low, I noticed, takes, like a severe low where you've had to use glucagon, takes a lot of time. And really,
you're not feeling like a zombie. So like 24 hours, your brain is like completely fog, and it's very hard to kind of get back to I wouldn't even say it's normality, but just get back to kind of your zen-like kind of being centered after either a high or a low. So
thank you for sharing that. I was asking him the other day, can you explain it to me? Because I'd love to. He had a severe hypo that wasn't coming up at school a few weeks back, and he missed a day of school because that whole afternoon slept it off, you know, ate well, but and I knew it would take some time, but I'm like, I'm just really curious because I don't know what that feels like. Do you have any words to describe it? And then, you know, I'd love to explain to your teachers what that feels like, or you can explain it to them, or, you know, not that they're expecting an explanation, but it's a really traumatic thing for your body to go through when your organs, your brain and everything, you know, suddenly is lacking glucose.
Absolutely. Well, the way I can only describe it is that it is like an outer body experience. This it's almost like this is happening to your body and you're looking at it from outside, but you can't control it. Like you've literally got zero control. You know, I remember having my first ever really bad hypo, and I was in the shower, and it was only because my husband realized and my kids realized that I'd been in the shower for 40 minutes. And I was just washing my hair for 40 minutes. Like literally I couldn't get, so it's almost like a repetitive thing. You know, this whole thing was happening to my body, and the only thing I could do was wash my hair for 40 minutes. Like it was really, really weird. And they realized that, you know, oh my God, something's wrong with mum. And then obviously, you know, you have that whole sugar kind of rush. And that's the one thing I hate about having a hypo, is that the intake of sugar that you have to have, because it's like, you know, your body is not accustomed to taking sugar anymore because you can't eat sugar anymore. And so then you have to pump loads of sugar into your body to be able to get back to normal levels. And then you just feel your body kind of goes into this awful kind of sugar overload kind of, you know, and you can't stop shaking because it's extraordinary. It's
complete shock to the system.
It is. And it's a massive, massive shock to your body, huge shock to your body having hypos. It's not, I try to avoid those at much cost. So it must
For
be really
sure.
difficult for you, Pam, because, you know, seeing your son having a hypo must be really scary for you.
It is
Really.
very scary. Actually, as we're recording this, so this will come out in a few weeks. I think it's next week, the guest I'm having on the podcast, and I never had really words for it before, but we talk about caretaker trauma.
Yeah.
And I have my own, you know,
Yeah.
they said there's some level of, for a lot of us, you know, PTSD and anxiety and trauma. And then I noticed when there was a few, again, like it's being a teenager, you know, the hormones and everything, and then a few more highs and lows. But there was one night that he had a stubborn low. Even though he's using a CGM, I still get up without an alarm. I'll wake up in the middle of the night panicking, thinking I need to check his blood sugar.
Yeah.
And we were kind of settling into some new technology, but I would still get up just to double check, you know, you never know. And he had this hypo, and after a lot of juice, it still wasn't coming up. And he's like, I think we need to use the glucagon, right? So that was his first time using inhalable glucagon. And he hasn't had a severe hypo since he was very, very small, and it was with a stomach virus and all of that. And after that, because that inhalable glucagon comes out really hard, it's like under a lot of pressure. We weren't expecting that. He wasn't expecting that. And then I realized that since that particular incident, I really don't sleep well. Like I really don't. I've gone back to almost those kind of you know, early diagnosis days where I wasn't sleeping at all. I mean, I'm sleeping a little bit better, of course, because the acceptance and everything is there, but it's, as a caretaker, it's super stressful because you can't fix it. You can only do, you know, work with the tools that you have and what you've been educated to do and help them the best they can, but you can't take it on for them. You can't take it away. You can't fix it. And then the constant worry, you know, is there. And I'm thinking in a few years' time, he's going to be out independent on his own in the world and university or whatever he decides to do. And it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. I think it, you know, my kids, they're grown up now, they're teenagers, well, young adults, but I think it was very traumatic for them to see me having hypos, very traumatic. And I think you're right, you know, that word PTSD, you know, trauma, I think they were massively affected by seeing their mum and not being able to do anything to help. That's, you know, if somebody falls over, you can pick them up, you can patch their knee, do you know what I mean? Kind of, or their injury or whatever, you can take them to hospital. You know, there's a solution. But when you're having a hypo, like you say, sometimes these hypos do not want to come up. I mean, literally, no matter how much sugar you give yourself, they just won't. And, you know, and that's all to do with your background insulin or your basal, you know, again, it's like, oh my God, you know, the whole mind fest of all of that you have to contend with as well. But yeah, I think both my kids, you know, they were young, and I think they really were affected by me being diagnosed with diabetes and, you know, these the trauma of experiencing hypos, for sure.
Wow. Yeah, for sure. I never thought about how that would affect others, because usually we think about caretakers, but I always say, you know, one person gets diabetes, it really does affect the whole family in different ways. So when you're climbing and like doing a really challenging climb, do you have to are you able to just, you know, kind of eat what's there? I know, like, you know, you're hiking and it's kind of whatever they cook and things like that. And then are you having to carry a lot more extra supplies with you outside of emergency things, or how do you prepare for something like that with diabetes?
Yeah. So again, you have to, you know, you really have to focus on it and put your mind to be really mindful, I think. So I would, when you're at altitude, you have to eat a lot of protein and a lot of carbs, just to keep your body kind of going at altitude. And so I always take my own snacks, a lot of like things like nuts. I try to take dates because they're a natural kind of glucose, and also they're absolutely delicious. I try to stick away from processed sugar, because obviously that just, you know, would mess. I would be going like
processed
this.
anything really is not good for
Yeah,
any of
no,
us. And even if
absolutely.
you're not in a high altitude, if
Yeah.
you were to really eat processed sugar, you would realize that it's
Oh my God. Yeah. It's
not
just
good.
not even worth it. It really is.
Yeah.
Consequences, you know,
Especially when you're climbing and you're doing something really intense like that. You
yeah.
need to fuel your body well.
Yeah, no. So, you know, and when you go and do these adventures and stuff, the food is always amazing. Like people are always skeptical. Oh my God, the food's going to be awful. It's just going to be baked beans and, you know, pieces of bread. My God, the food is incredible. I remember when I was in Ladakh, which is northern India, and it's the Indian Himalayas, and we had these lovely kind of cooks on our expedition, and one night they made us a chocolate cake which they baked in the ground. I mean, that's how, you know,
Oh, how cool is
you
that?
get on these expeditions. It's just incredible. Like literally, it's like you don't want to stop eating, you know, because the food is you get excited about eating because the food's good. Like, and it's so wholesome. You know, this is all, it's mainly all organic food that because it comes from these amazing countries high up, and you like it's just really lovely and wholesome. And I'm really conscious that I try to keep you know, I'm one of these people. I have a Dexcom, and so I'm constantly, so it's on my, you know, it's on my iPhone, and so my app is constantly open. So I'm literally monitoring my levels. Like it's obsessive, and again, it's all numbers in my brain kind of thing. But and so again, when I'm climbing, I'm doing stuff like that, I will just constantly be checking them. And you know, I would set alarms to check every 45 minutes, because obviously you can't climb with your phone in your hand. So I would set an alarm, keep checking every 45 minutes to see my, you know. And the great thing about all this new technology, because when I was first diagnosed, there was nothing around like this. I mean, like it is absolutely
we were living blindly back then. It makes it so much easier.
Oh my God. I mean, mine was all fingerprint pricking when, you know, back in the day when I was diagnosed, to the point where I had very little blood in my fingertips, you know, because I was checking constantly. I just want to, you know, because it has such an effect, I just want to know what my levels are doing all the time. So like I say, the Dexcom is just, it's just changed my life. Like literally, it's amazing. So I'm really conscious of my levels. I make sure that I eat healthy foods, foods that are not going to have a knock-on effect. And if they do, like, so when I was doing Everest Base Camp, chips, these amazing chips, not processed chips, you know, made from real potatoes, you know, homemade chips, and they were amazing. So most of the time I would be eating homemade chips and fried eggs, because obviously the protein of fried eggs. Yeah, lots of protein. And then, you know, massive portion of vegetables. And so what I would do is I would compensate not very much for the carb loading, because I know that I'm at altitude, so my levels are going to be low anyway. So I'd have a slight spike, because, you know, I hadn't compensated as nearly as much as I should have done for the fries, you know, chips, but it would come down very quickly back to normal levels because of the altitude, and also because of the protein in the you know, the salads, greens that I was eating. Have you heard of Glucose Goddess, just offline?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so I live my life by her rules, basically. Just
okay, yeah, I follow her.
Yeah, she's amazing.
A lot of people follow her and like her, and I see that she has a book now. I actually saw them even selling the book in Dubai, which is good. And
she's
that's really cool. Amazing. The other thing I wanted to ask you, so what is the most challenging situation you found yourself in, or what is the most challenging physical challenge that you've taken on? Which mountain, or was there a time where you're like, this is crazy doing this with diabetes?
So last year when I went to Ecuador, so I went with this amazing group of people, and we went to climb two volcanoes in Ecuador, so Cotopaxi and Chimborazo. But before that, we climbed these two kind of granite mountains as training, you know, altitude training. And so Cotopaxi was really, really good fun, like absolutely incredible, and a really lovely experience. Although coming down, so this again, this is, you know, how your insulin just kind of, you know, how your diabetes can be affected and everything. So summited, absolutely beautiful, you know, being on top of the world, just, you know, you're above the cloud line. It just like, and you've got there. It took us, you know, we left at midnight and we got there just as the sun was rising. Beautiful. But then coming down was really quite challenging because I'd got my insulin in my so I had it. I got this amazing summit jacket, and it's like a bit like wearing a million duvets. Like, it's so warm. It's just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But I'd stuffed my insulin in the inside pocket to keep it kind of because obviously you're at sub-zero temperatures. But it had got too warm, and so it completely stopped working. And so, and again, obviously with exercise and exertion on your body, sometimes your levels don't necessarily drop, sometimes they escalate. And so I think I was putting my body under so much pressure from the climbing and from the altitude. I'd reached quite a high level when I got to the top, and gave myself insulin. I couldn't get it down at all. So I basically had to climb off the mountain, feeling with a high level, and which I can only explain it is when you're high, it's very difficult to do things. Like, it takes forever when you've got that feeling, like, because you, again, it's this like out of body experience. So I couldn't walk fast out, you know, I couldn't climb, it just took so long for me to come back down. It was, everybody else had kind of got back down, and I got to a point on the mountain where we were so close to the base of the mountain, but we were still in snow. So the lovely guide I was with, because you have to be roped to somebody on when you're climbing a mountain like that, he was just like, you know, I need to get you down. And I was just like, I cannot physically walk any faster. And I was literally walking kind of 1 foot like that, you know, and that's fine on the way up because you can't walk very fast because you're at altitude. But on the way down, you almost want to run down just to get, you know, out of altitude and at the bottom. And so he was just like, okay, he said, I'm going to basically strap you. And he said, you're going to lie on your back, and he said, I'm going to pull you down, so you're going to kind of surf ski down for this last
wow.
You know, yeah, it was kind of like, I was just like, I found it, you know, it was absolutely brilliant. You know, I knew that I needed to get down as quickly as possible so that I could get some more insulin to be able to inject myself and get my levels down, because, you know, they were high. And but equally, like, I was, you know, it added another layer to this adventure because I was doing something that none of the other kind of climbers were doing. And I was having this, you know, kind of snow ski down the bottom bit of the mountain, and I literally couldn't stop laughing. I was loving it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it was kind of like, oh my God, this is really serious, but actually this is really good fun, kind of.
Yeah, and then some new source of entertainment was invented, or some other experience.
Exactly, absolutely. And then and then when I climbed Chimborazo, those sort of like 4 days later, which is the highest volcano in Ecuador, I knew then that I needed to change tactics with my insulin, and just in the whole way that I kind of you know, took it, didn't take it, the basal, the bolus, and you know, eating and stuff, and just needed to be kind of just change tactics, and that worked. So, but again, you know, diabetes is not something that's just black and white. You know, it's not like you just wake up in the morning, you take your basal insulin, and then you eat your food, you take your you know,
if only it were so easy.
If only.
It's
so
not.
You know, no 2 day is the same. Like, literally, you can have an amazing day with your levels and do everything exactly the same as you did yesterday on that day, and you can have completely different levels. Completely. So it's like I say, it's a mental mind fest.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, and so you have to tackle each situation that you find yourself, each situation that you put yourself into. You have to look at it with a really open kind of mind and try to kind of troubleshoot as many situations that you can see coming up, and variables, and just and also go with the flow, and just, you know, if you go high, you go high. Do you know what I mean? If you go low, do something about it. But yeah, just be really mindful. That's, I think, is just, you know, and just keep going with it, you know. And yeah, I mean, you know, in Machu Picchu, I spent a day where my levels were just fluctuating like that, and I was just that, you know, I've been here for 3 days already. What's the yeah, I'm a slightly higher altitude. I'm eating the same things. I'm not taking any more insulin than I have been, you know. Who knows? You know, it can be your body, your temperature fluctuating, it can be hormones, that can be, I mean, there's so much that, you know, plays a key part.
Yeah, there's over 50 things or so that
yeah,
one of the diabetes organizations is, you know, highlighted that can affect your blood sugar. And I like what you talk about, you know, being mindful about it.
yeah,
I went through this period where, when I started to understand that, I said diabetes is really like a Zen condition, because you have to only be present. You can't, we can learn from the experience, but you can't necessarily worry about what happened before, and you can never predict what's going to happen in the future. So it's really keeping you in the moment, whether you like it or not. You are where you are.
Yeah. And you literally, like I say, you have to be so mindful, just about, and just accept it. I think, to, you know, at the beginning, I'm pretty much a perfectionist, and I like my ducks in a row, and I kind of like, you know, everything to be how I want it to be. And so that was a real struggle for me, not to be able to kind of control it to begin with, because it was all new and what have you. And I think that's where I brought that mindset in, was right. Okay, I need to control it, not have it control me. And that's when I was like, right, I need to do physical exercise, because this will help me. I need to eat mindfully. I need to be really healthy. You know, I need to start cooking more and making healthy stuff. And yeah, so I, you know, in a way, I'm grateful for diabetes coming into my life, because it gave me that whole holistic overview. And a lot of people won't have that in life, you know, in their lives, or get the chance to experience that, you know. So yeah, I am, because it has changed my life, diabetes, you know. It really, really has changed my whole mindset about how I go about things and do things. And you know, just the fact that you know, I don't have, it's I can't explain it, but I don't really have a fear anymore of anything. You know, so I find it easy to climb a mountain. And I think that's because I've got diabetes, because, you know, it can be fearful, it can be terrifying, absolutely terrifying to have when you're first diagnosed with diabetes. You know, it is a life-threatening disease, and not many people know that it's a life-threatening disease. And so, again, you know, I think you can't be frightened of it, you can't be terrified of it. And so now I just have this kind of Zen-like approach to things, like, you know, of course I can do that. Yeah, and yeah, it might be difficult while I'm doing it, and I might have to push myself and challenge myself. But again, that's a kind of mental thing. You know, if you know, I think your body is can do anything, right? It's capable of doing anything, but actually it's more your mind that is, you know, I think your mind is the thing that can tell you that you are capable of doing anything, right? You have this incredible brain. And if you're telling yourself constantly, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, well, of course your body's going to give up, right?
Yep.
You're telling your body that you can't do it, so it's just going to say, well, if you can't even bother to do it, why am I going to, you know, exert myself? But if you're telling yourself constantly that you can do it, well, your body's going to be really strong. So I think that's that kind of a massive power, you know, of
believe that 100%. I think that's wonderful advice and wisdom and insight that you're sharing with everyone, all of it. And living fearlessly, being mindful, and what you tell yourself, that will definitely be your outcome. There's that famous quote, like, if you think you can't, then you won't.
No, but that's right. And I was lucky enough to meet this incredible Pakistani lady who is taking the climbing world by storm. She's literally just climbed her 8th summit, first Pakistani lady to climb 8 summits.
Oh, wow.
She is incredible. Her story is incredible. But she said to me, because I was just like, you know, wow. And she was just like, Milly, we all have blind spots. she said, and those blind spots prevent us from doing so much in our lives. She said, if you remove those blind spots, what you're capable of. And she said, I've removed all my blind spots and look what I'm achieving. And I was like, oh my God, that is just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Because she's absolutely right. We all tell ourselves, oh my God, I can't do that. Oh my God, I'm not capable of doing that. I can't take that new job. Oh my God, there's no way I can take that new job. Well, remove that blind spot. Of course you can do that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this. Everyone needs to really think about that and lean into that and everything. So as we talked before I push record, we're having this family event in early November, and I was hoping that you could come and join this panel. I'm hoping to have with a lot of inspirational people with type 1, but you are not going to be here because you're going to be somewhere extremely beautiful and cool and taking on a new challenge. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky. I'm going to be taking 10 people to cycle across Namibia, which is just going to be, like you say, incredible. The scenery in Namibia is, by all accounts, absolutely spectacular. I think the wildlife that we're going to see is just mind-blowing. And we get to sleep in tents, so the stars are going to be incredible.
Wow.
You know, we get to cycle along the coastline. So yeah, it's going to be really, really cool. And it's also a massive challenge for me because, you know, I'm not a cyclist. My love is my legs. You know, I use my legs for everything, you know, climbing, hiking kind of thing. So yeah, getting on a bike for between 5 and 6 hours a day, you know, cycling 60 to 70 kilometers a day across different terrain, you know, sand dunes, rough tracks kind of, is going to be a real challenge for me. So I'm really excited about that because I always like to try new things. And yeah, it's going to be interesting how, you know, my diabetes is going to play a different, because, you know, when you cycle, I don't know, you only ever actually realize, you know, use your legs. So, and not the top half of your body, right? And so it's going to be very much like my running, I think, in terms of how my levels are kind of good because I run a lot and I do a lot of interval training. So it'll be interesting to see how, you know, I've been doing every Sunday morning lots of cycling in a lovely park nearby, and it's solid training, which is great fun. But my levels haven't really been affected. But that's only 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of track. So yeah, I'm very excited to take these 10 people across Namibia, because like I say, it's another challenge for me personally, but also for my diabetes as well. And it's going to be incredible, absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in the job that I do.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and I can't wait to hear all about it. So you'll have to share some pictures and all of that. And we'll put links in the show notes for Golf for Good if you want to join any of their challenges, participate, or they're also always looking for volunteers. There's a WhatsApp group here that I'm on that list, and don't volunteer as much as I should. So they always have all kinds of really nice things happening in the community. So we'll put all those links in the show notes. And I can't thank you enough for taking your time this morning and sharing a little bit of your story with us. You are super inspirational for everyone, and it's such a blessing to really get to talk to you and learn more about it. So thank you so much.
I've had a lovely time. I just love all these topics. So it's been a great podcast. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, and good luck in Namibia.
Thank you. Bye.
That was so inspirational. I hope you were inspired as much as I was. Milly, I again thank her for joining us for the show and sharing her experience with us. My key takeaways from this discussion have been to be mindful in the moment. And I think that's so true. That's been my observation, even though I'm not living with diabetes. Being mindful about it makes it so much easier to manage. Not that it's easy, but it does help. Be mindful, be present in the moment, and Milly, she talks about being fearless, and she is truly fearless. These challenges she's doing, they are not easy. These places that she's tracked, they're not easy. I've met a few other people that have been to some of those places before, and they are certainly challenging. And the fact that she's bringing a chronic condition with her to do this, it makes, I think, it even more special. And she is the definition of fearless. Also, I appreciated that she was thankful for the lessons that diabetes has given her. I think diabetes teaches us a lot. For me as a caretaker, I know I've learned a lot, and I've met a lot of wonderful people. And for those lessons and those people that I've been fortunate to connect with, I am thankful for, even though it's a condition that I wish nobody had to deal with, and not something I would wish on anyone. If there is a bright side to diabetes, that just might be it. So thank you all again for listening and joining me on the podcast. I really appreciate your support. If you like what we're doing, please don't hesitate to give us a 5-star rating or leave us a review, and share it with friends and family that you think might benefit from it. It really does allow us to continue to do this and help more people find us. Have a wonderful rest of the month of November, Diabetes Awareness Month. And next weekend, we will be at the Diapoint Family Weekend. If you're there, I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day ahead.